Hi guys, I'm Dr. K and you're with Body Successful. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about intermittent fasting. Alright, well, let's get started. When you think about the caveman and his meal plan, it looked like this. He either ate if he killed, or he was running around trying to kill in order to eat. It was very simple. For millions of years, men practiced intermittent fasting. He went through periods of fast and periods of feast. And his body adapted to this so well and worked so efficiently. And then the arrogant modern man stepped in and just ruined everything. I'm just kidding, not quite everything. Anyhow, with the modernization of food, the only challenge really humans had in terms of food is to find parking at the grocery store. We got inundated with this large variety of food-like substances that was so readily available and we are literally eating ourselves to death. See, from an evolutionary standpoint, we are not equipped to deal with this constant eating and snacking and grazing. Our bodies just don't know how to deal with it efficiently without adverse effects. So perhaps we need to rewind the clock a few million years and do something different, because what we're doing today is clearly not working for us. And so that's the whole idea about healthy eating. So when you look at a healthy diet, instead of thinking about calorie restriction, which if you've been following my videos, you understand that it's not viable and it's not effective in terms of fat loss, perhaps you should be looking at healthy diet in terms of healthier choice, number one, and number two, the timing when we consume these foods. In other words, instead of thinking about not overeating at dinner or not eating too much on a holiday or whatnot, you should be perhaps thinking about refraining from eating over an extended period of time. And this is what really intermittent fasting is about. Intermittent fasting is not calorie restricting by any means. In intermittent fasting, you are reducing the window when you're consuming your calories in a day. So a very popular way, for example, to start intermittent fasting, if you want to try it out, which I have been practicing 4 to 5 days a week for a period of time now, is to do the 16-8 split. So you have a window of 8 hours when you consume all your calories, and then you fast for 18 hours, during which time you consume nothing of caloric value. And that's really not a difficult thing to do if you think about it. Most Americans already skip breakfast as is. I said breakfast skipping is not a bad thing. Amazing. Well, we're gonna be talking about this in later videos. But anyways, the point is, it's not a difficult thing to do to push out your window where you start your meal at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon and go all the way until 8, 9 o'clock, and then you refrain from eating again until the next day. And then if this is something that's really resonates with you and you do well on it, you can always progress to something more drastic like alternate day fasting and all that. I mean, there's just so much information out on the web right now about intermittent fasting, and rightfully so. I mean, it makes sense. Once you start doing it, you realize. But the problem is, the reason this has become so popular is solely because of its really strong, very effective way of in fat loss. In other words, it's really effective when it comes to weight loss, specifically fat loss. But see, this doesn't even begin to scratch the surface, because there's so many other health effects that are worth considering. You see, with the declining health in our society, scientists started looking into different ways to prevent and to treat some of these conditions that we are surfacing, that we haven't had in the early days of the man. So, of course, studying them over a decade at a time, a lot of positive data has come out, a lot of promising data in terms of preventing and treating a lot of diseases, and rightfully so. I mean, this is not a surprise. Think about it. We are wired to eat this way. We are wired to eat and not to eat, and eat and not to eat. We are not, this whole modernization of food had become so quickly had come about, our bodies from an evolutionary standpoint have not evolved yet to deal with that efficiently without adverse effects, period. So let's look at all these effects that they have found. All right, let's start with number one, the big kahuna in the room. Of course, weight loss, specifically fat loss. Why is intermittent fasting so effective at fat loss? Well, let's take a look. What happens when you eat? When you eat, you get all these micronutrients that are being free-floating in your blood. As a result, the pancreas releases insulin, and that is a hormone whose function is to tuck away all those free nutrients that are free-floating in the cell, in the blood, and tuck them away in the cells. So it's a storing hormone. When insulin is present, the body goes into the storage mode. When insulin is there, insulin commands the body to lay down fat. So when insulin is present when you eat, your body can only be in a fat storing mode. It cannot do both. It cannot be in a fat burning mode. So when you are fasting though, and the insulin levels go down, you're giving the body the opportunity to start dipping into its fat storing mode and fat storage, and start burning the stored fat in the body. Another important hormone that gets released when you're fasting is growth hormone. Growth hormone is really, really powerful during this period of time because it preserves the muscle. So it does not allow the muscle to break down for energy. This is super important when you're fasting. As also, growth hormone is really, really powerful at burning fat. So the fat burning rate, the accessing of the stored fat in the body during fasting becomes accelerated. So when growth hormone is present, insulin is down, the body is not in fat storing mode, it's in fat burning mode, it's burning fat at a lot faster rate, and also it's preserving muscle from being broken down, which is really important because it's a highly metabolic tissue. Number three, the third really important hormone why intermittent fasting is so effective at fat loss is norepinephrine. And norepinephrine is super important because it increases your basal metabolic rate. In other words, the energy that you will be expending at rest just to stay alive will increase and stay elevated for as long as you're fasting. What a weird concept, right? So you're not eating anything, yet your basal metabolic rate is elevated and stays elevated, so you can burn more energy at rest than you would otherwise. But this makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint, because when you were a caveman and you didn't eat and you were in a state of fasting and you had to go run around to try to kill something to eat, and if your body was withering and weak and tired, it could have not done that. So the whole point is that the body is trying to do everything it can in order to give extra boost of energy to the body so it can go out there and hunt again. So that's the reason why during fasting, actually your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, is elevated and stays elevated for as long as you are fasting. So there are other hormones that come in play here. They're really important, but for the purposes of just fat loss, these three hormones are the most important ones for which we say that intermittent fasting is so effective at fat loss. Now, number two, of course, insulin resistance. When it makes sense, if you're not eating, insulin is not released. Insulin is slowly becomes more and more depleted in the body. So it is really, really important when it comes to treating and managing prediabetes and diabetes. Number three, whenever you're fasting, your inflammatory markers go down, which is very important because this helps us in treating and managing conditions like MS, or even thinking about long-term prevention. And rheumatoid arthritis. There are a lot of recurring inflammatory disorders in today's society that are kind of idiopathic. We don't know why they're happening. Now, it has been shown that intermittent fasting has a huge effect in the preventions of these diseases. Also, heart disease, prevention of heart disease is very important, obviously, because we see that with intermittent fasting, the cholesterol, triglycerides, your bad fats have decreased substantially. So when we're talking about the heart disease prevention and management, intermittent fasting again becomes very, very important. Cancer treatment and cancer prevention. It has been shown through numerous studies that when you're fasting, tumor cells cannot grow. It's completely blocked from growing. So this also opens the door for us to think about other ways of managing and treating cancer patients. Even during chemotherapy, they've done studies where they've shown that the effects of the chemotherapy drug was elevated during a fasting state. How about longevity and anti-aging? They have shown studies where they compared mice who fasted throughout life and mice who didn't. And the ones that fasted lived 83% longer than the ones that didn't. So that's a significant result, you guys. Neuroscience. In neuroscience, this is another very, very exciting result in preventing neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. This is again really advanced science, but how does it do that? How is it possible that intermittent fasting does that? Well, there is a very new topic in science called autophagy, and it has been studied for about a decade now, but in 2016, this Japanese scientist was awarded the Nobel Prize for it. Autophagy is a physiologic process of cleaning house in the body. It means self-eating. Basically, when autophagy is present, then the body recycles old junk and cellular debris and pieces of cellular wall and organelles that are no longer functioning right, and recycles them and makes something new out of it. Now, when autophagy is sluggish, the cellular debris and junk just builds up and makes the aesthetic and the physiological aging really advanced in terms of it advances cellular and physiologic aging. And this is the reason why we see that with fasting, autophagy rate really skyrockets. So when you're fasting, the rate of autophagy is a lot higher. As a result, the debris removal and the junk removal and the old removal of the cell becomes really efficient, and the new can come in and form. And this is just really the basics of it. Of course, this is a huge topic, and we could start having a whole new video on autophagy. And I know it's kind of sciencey and geeky, but if you guys want, I definitely will have a whole video on it for you. So the bottom line is also that when you're fasting, the body learns to switch over from a primary source of energy of glucose to fat. So it becomes, it goes into a state of ketosis. So this brings me to my next topic. Because in a state of ketosis, oxidative damage completely halts, which means that ketosis and autophagy goes hand in hand. And this is why anti-aging and neurodegenerative disorders kind of slow down. And so anyway, this is a topic for another day. But this definitely brings me to my next topic, which is going to be ketogenic diet. And I know there's a lot of stuff out there that you see, and it's primarily due to the importance in fat loss. But I think you're going to be surprised with the new applications that I'm going to be introducing in my next video when it comes to ketogenic diets. So please comment in the box below. I want to hear how your fasting is going, if you have done it, what your challenges are. Let's open up a conversation. This is me, Dr. K, signing out till next time. All the way.